Hi there, traders. This is Brad Gilbert with the FX Market Insight for the 22nd of June. Now, let's have a quick look at the major currency pairs and see where they're closing that North American session. Now, the Aussie, that sort of down move has started to drift sideways. There's been no major economic data out of Australia and nothing out of the US. So really, it's in a bit of a stalemate and just sliding sideways. Each day, we're just moving this trend line, the resistance trend line, just to the next point. So I still think there's a chance for either side. It's a little bit up in the air. Kiwi, we're getting these sporadic sort of shoots up, but it is overall trading sideways, as is dollar yen. Now, we thought, I thought it would continue high yesterday, but it has just drifted back into the range. No input from China or Trump with regards to those tariffs. So dollar yen sort of banging away. Looked like it had a good chance yesterday, but didn't deliver. Euro continues to trade sideways in a pretty big range. There are rumblings. It did sell off initially in the European session on the back of the German, I think Daimler Chrysler or one of these German car makers, basically sort of saying that these tariffs are going to crush them. So that came back into play, and Euro sort of bounced with sterling. Now, sterling bounced primarily I think it was the head economic guy at the Bank of England. Right, he was saying that they should raise rates now, or went into the high rate situation. So the vote count changed from 2.7 to 6.3, and I'll show you the numbers in a second. But just on the dollar CAD, right? So we're starting to see oil. Oil's the green bar here. Now I've got that inverted. So as it looks like the green bar is going lower, it's actually going higher. I've just got it so it correlates well with the actual currency pair, which is quoted as dollar CAD. Now, it's a little bit all over the place, but dollar CAD itself is just shooting to the top side. Now, it's in the middle of nowhere, right? It's such a high-risk trade at the moment. We've got the OPEC meeting starting today, also Canadian CPI and retail sales numbers. So it's going to be a pretty loose trade, and that's what the market's going to be really focusing on. But just coming back just quickly, just to explain to you where that movement came on sterling, what we had a situation is, okay, so the vote count here, this is one of the good things about the whole situation. Now, there's no change in rates, and it shot up aggressively. Some traders weren't aware of what that means or why it did that. Vote hike, right? So that they give you a very clear indication of who was doing what. Previously, and for some time, the vote count, like 2 people wanted to hike, 7 people were unchanged, and none were going for a vote cut. When there is a change in the hike situation, even if it's one person, it means they're one step closer to a potential hike, and that is very hawkish, right? So that was the catalyst for the big move higher on sterling, and it's just a matter of understanding where these components fit into play. So there was no change in rates. Some people were saying, did they change rates? No, they didn't. It was just a change on the board, the way they were voting, and it was in favour more so towards a hike potentially sooner than later. Now, the US jobless numbers pretty much as expected. Wholesale trade figures not that important out of Canada, a little bit weaker. As I said, dollar CAD is on its own trajectory, whether that's, I think it's more to do with the potential trade impacts from, NAFTA and all those situations. So then you come down to, what are we really looking at now? We've already gone through the technical aspect of the currencies. We've got some trend lines to work with here. Sterling is now in the middle of nowhere. So you're looking to try and piece together those technicals with upcoming events. Now, one of the key things to look at the moment, dollar yen has been a bit of a focal point. Now, we do have some CPI numbers. Now, these numbers will not drastically move the currency pair like most other countries' CPI data. But what you are looking for is a potential change in the inflation numbers here. Now, the Tokyo CPI numbers are the most important. The nationwide's are secondary sort of. But if there is a change in inflation, then that will hit the Nikkei, and that'll give us the direction for dollar yen. It's not dramatic, right? And these numbers that you can see here, they come out 30 minutes before the Nikkei opens. So you've got a bit of time to wait. It's not a dramatic release like all the other releases. That's what I just want you to understand. Now, coming back into the major components for today's trading, and that's what we're talking about there is the major fundamental drivers that are going to be impacting the market. Well, we've got we've got some numbers out of Europe, and they are worth having a look at. I think the German numbers are a little bit more of a focus, especially at the moment now that a few of the German companies, or especially car makers, are starting to rumble. We do have the Eurozone numbers there as well, so that may give us something on Euro, all right? But the real wham, bam, thank you, ma'am sort of stuff is going to come from the Bank of Canada or the CPI data out of Canada. And don't forget, you've got retail sales out of Canada as well. You've got two core variables there. So, if you're thinking of really leveraging up, think twice, because CPI, say it's up and retail sales is down, you get a bit of a knee-jerk reaction. So, but this is the CPI number is the core number that we need to look for. Okay, this number. Well, they're looking at the sort of Bank of Canada core numbers as being the sort of key ones, but basically this is one of their key components for the Bank of Canada to raise rates. That's why it's so important. And with, I just want to give you a bit of perspective on this, because don't think it's just such an easy trade. There's two reasons. They've got two variables coming out, and just look at this. This is a daily chart of dollar CAD. Okay, going back to December 2015. This is as tricky as you're going to get it. Right, and what I'm talking about is we're up here in the middle of nowhere. There's no real technical levels. Now, drawing a resistance line from here to this point here, well, all you're doing is focusing on that new high. You can just draw a horizontal line there, but it is way up in the boondocks. Now, oil, so you can see here on the left-hand column, I have got it inverted. It is still, it's not rallying just at the moment, but what you are seeing is, it's overall, it's moving higher. Now, we have seen it just sort of slip back a bit. That's the last little catalyst for a move higher. But the key focus from this point will be OPEC, right? So just looking at dollar CAD, yeah, there's a chance to get into a trade here on the actual release itself, but understand liquidity is going to be very thin, okay? And the volatility is going to be extreme. Now, everyone expects it at some stage to pull back, but there's no real indication at this point if it's going to be now, or whether we see another couple of hundred points to the top side. If they got some, say for instance, they were going to increase supply of oil, well then oil's going to fall, and that's going to push dollar CAD higher. If the inflation numbers are weak, okay, and that will push dollar CAD higher. But then if you get weak inflation and OPEC comes back and says we're going to restrict supply, well then oil's going to rally, and you get too many variables pulling opposite directions. So just be careful. You may get these things lining up, and we may get a 200-point move, but at the same time they may line up the other way, and we may get a ricochet down. So it's loose. I'd say reduce your trade size, and to give yourself a better chance of staying in the trade and managing that initial volatility, right? Because this is the major event probably for the week as far as fundamental releases go. And that's what we've got to look forward to. So just coming back over here to give you a look at the US dollar. Okay, so there's not a hell of a lot of clear trading there. It's just trading sideways at this point. I don't see any major change there. On the dailies, the dollar index is sort of just moving higher. Once again, the equities, US equities down 0.8, not a big deal. If you're looking at the Nikkei though, it's scheduled to open up down minus 210. And that's where these Japanese core nationwide inflation numbers come into play. If they are strong, the Nikkei will rally, right? If they're weaker than 0.7, it'll fall, and you'll continue to see red numbers across all the equity markets there. All right, now just one last point. Let me just show you let me just move these things out of the way. The yen crosses. Now, these yen crosses they're still in play, right? But if anything, it's on hold, because we've lost a clear direction here on dollar yen, which is a bit of a shame. We do have sort of short-term downward bias here on the Aussie and Aussie yen and Kiwi yen. You can see the wild price action here on sterling. Now, I cancelled my order that was going to look for a break of the top of the cloud. Primarily, that Bank of England situation. It's not just I know a few of our traders have already told me they made some good cash out of this. To me, it's a bit more higher risk. I just put the order on hold and was waiting. I still think it goes higher. There's a chance for a retracement off the line, but I just cancelled the initial one. Euro yen, just trading sideways up and down through the cloud. Now, one thing to watch very closely today is CAD yen. Obviously, the pure oil trade. If oil rallies, then this CAD yen has to rally. I mean, it's just so tightly connected to oil. That's the one thing to watch. If OPEC, increases supply, well, then oil will fall and CAD yen will continue downwards. It's a good one to watch, probably even a little bit better than dollar CAD for that matter, because dollar CAD's in the middle of nowhere. It has no technical setups. So make sure you keep a very close eye on CAD yen as we go through the day. Now, just to finish up, I was just going to show you the where we are with regards the sort of daily snapshot. Sorry, I should say. Just slipped my mind there for a second. The daily analysis snapshot. So just looking at the key events. Obviously, we've got 8 hours until the German flash manufacturing. So there's not a lot to do. Probably for the Asian session, we still have good trading conditions. One of the things that I was just going to say with the on the technical side of things, we do still have a couple of currency pairs that do have a clear technical outlook. We do have a couple here now that have a fundamental outlook, but we do not have them matching up. And that's why I've got these currencies, some of these currencies on hold. Sterling, that bias from that Bank of England meeting will be in the market for probably a week or more. So just keep an eye on that. But what we're looking for is the technicals to give us a clear signal, and that would give us a buy signal on sterling. Aussie and Kiwi still technically pointing downwards, but once again, we don't have that fundamental driver. So I've just got those on hold at the moment as well. So with that, the technical side, there are some technical trades, but they aren't as gorgeous as having a fundamental and a technical combined. Where, you know what, funnily enough, just on the technicals and the overall bias from the Fed, the dollar index is still the one pair to me that is a buy. Okay, it's in the middle up in the middle of nowhere, but you know what? It's not going down. So something's got to give. And as we roll into next week, we get a fresh bunch of US data. That could be the catalyst. But today, don't forget, just focus on the core releases coming out. It's going to be very interesting for dollar CAD, as I said. These CPI numbers are very high impacting. Retail sales to follow up as well. Nothing really out of the US, so that's a good thing. No distractions. Just focus on your technical levels. As I said, with dollar CAD, if you're looking at that, make sure you're focusing on CAD yen. That's the one to go for. All right, chaps, have a good one, and I'll see you in the trade zone. Cheerio.